Four teams remain, but only one can win it. Are Arsenal the favourites? Well, we're going to discuss it. We're going to try and be rational, although still absolutely bouncing after last night. If, though, before we get into it, I could just ask you to subscribe. We are flying, absolutely flying on this channel at the moment. I'm so grateful for the support. You could like the video as well. It helps to get to more people. That would be amazing. And also, if you're thinking, has he got makeup on? Yes, I do. I was on TalkSport very early this morning recording an Inside Gooners episode. If you've not checked out the TalkSport YouTube channel for Inside Gooners, it's brilliant. Proper Arsenal talk. Perry Groves was on there with me as well. Ex-Arsenal player. Amazing to meet him. So I thoroughly recommend that you go and check that out. But without further ado, and just ignoring the makeup because, you know, showbiz, apparently, we're going to get into it. Are Arsenal the favourites? No. Not according to the bookies, anyway. The favourites, according to the bookies, are Barcelona. Then it's PSG. Then it's Arsenal. And then it's Inter Milan. But as you can see, it's all very, very close. There is no clear favourite with the bookies. And you've got to bear in mind, when it comes to bookies, odds are not based on anything rational, really. They're not based on numbers. This doesn't mean that they all think Barcelona are going to win. That just means that's where the money is. So more money is on Barcelona than any of the other teams. And that's probably because earlier on in the competition, they got a very favourable side of the draw relative to Arsenal, PSG, etc. So that explains that. But then if we go and look at this, Opta, who have done their analysis, Arsenal are the favourites according to Opta. Then it's Inter Milan, then it's PSG, and then it's Barcelona. So it's actually completely opposite to the bookies' odds. Now, why is it different? Why are Arsenal and Inter the two favourites? That is something that we're going to look at. Now, if we get into some of the numbers, and I don't want to go crazy on numbers, but there are some interesting things, right? This, for me, is the reason that Inter are considered up there. Goals conceded per match in the Champions League this season. Inter, top of the list, just 0.4 goals conceded per game. Now, you will notice Arsenal sat there in third. Very good for Arsenal that we're sat there in third. Obviously, Liverpool were conceding very few goals before they ultimately got knocked out by PSG. The interesting thing here is, though, so Inter are first, we're third, PSG are fifth, Barcelona 14th. So immediately you can see Barcelona have a weakness for conceding goals. And that can make it difficult to win any tournament. Because if you come up against an Inter, and this is where I think Inter versus Barca is actually a really interesting semi-final, and I don't think Barcelona are strong favourites for that semi-final at all, Inter can keep Barcelona out. Barcelona may not be able to keep Inter out, and that could be the difference in the tie. And then if you go and look at goals scored, this is goals scored per match. Barcelona, top of the list for goals scored by a significant margin. So yes, all right, they're conceding more, but they're also scoring much more. And that plays into why I think they're the bookies' favourites. People see Barcelona scoring goals so often, they go, well, they're great. They're quality. They're going to win it. Arsenal second on this list. So immediately, Arsenal third on the list for goals conceded per match, second on the list for goals scored per match. That's very strong. And that is part of the reason I think Opta have us as the favourites. As far as balance goes, we are very balanced. We concede very little. We're capable of scoring plenty. Whereas again, you look at it, PSG 7th for goals scored. Inter 16th for goals scored. So Inter, an identifiable weakness, scoring goals. PSG, very similarly to us actually, balanced. 5th for goals conceded, 7th for goals scored. They can do both pretty well. And that's where Arsenal versus PSG over two legs could get very interesting. So Arsenal and PSG, probably the two most balanced teams. Barca, very, very strong offensively, but have frailties at the back. We saw Borussia Dortmund had over 5 XG against Barcelona over two legs. That is a lot for a team like Borussia Dortmund to be creating. And then Inter, of course, have the issue that whilst they are very, very strong defensively, they struggle to score. And so that's where we're at in terms of some of the kind of broader numbers. I don't want to get into the weeds with possession stats and all of that sort of thing. But what I actually think is interesting is styles. And this is the biggest thing for me. The reason Arsenal went through against Real Madrid was because stylistically, it was a very good matchup. The reason that I would have preferred PSG in the semi-final to Aston Villa is that I think it is a better stylistic matchup. Equally, on the other side of the draw, Barca against Inter, I like that for Inter. I think stylistically that's a good match for Inter. Not saying that Barcelona won't beat them. They're so good going forwards that they very may well do. But I think both sides of the draw are really interesting ties. And fundamentally, right, if we go back to the numbers, we go back to, in fact, let me just bring it back up one more time. If we go back, to this, if we go back to this, right, why are these numbers so close? Okay. Why are these numbers so close? Why are the odds with the bookies so close? Because it's incredibly close. That's why. It's incredibly tight. It's very difficult to call. And I would actually say there is no favorite. Yeah, if you want the honest answer to the video title, are Arsenal the favorites? No. Are Barcelona the favorites? No. Are PSG the favorites? No. Are Inter the favorites? No. I don't think there's a team right now that can lay claim to being the favorite because it's too close to call. And this is where I think the end of this Champions League is really good. Like, I've seen people saying, "Oh, the Champions League's fallen off." What? Because Real Madrid aren't in the semi-finals, or because Liverpool aren't there, or whatever. Ultimately, right now, I'd say it is poised perfectly. You've got 4 of the best teams in Europe. You've got 2 matchups where it's anyone's game. No one could predict the winner. You've got the leaders in France, the leaders in Spain, the leaders in Italy, and the team that maybe should be leaders in England, battling it out. All of them have shown that they absolutely deserve to be in the semi-finals. PSG have knocked out Liverpool en route. Arsenal have knocked out Real Madrid. Inter have knocked out Bayern. Barca have arguably just been the best team throughout the Champions League. It's quality. It is high quality. Now, in terms of Arsenal specifically, I want to talk about Arsenal specifically. Let's get this back up on the stage. Can we beat PSG? That's the first stage, right? Beat PSG. Well, I think yes. A lot of people are talking about, well, PSG have massively improved. Since we beat them 2-0 at the Emirates in the league phase, PSG have massively improved, right? We look back to that game, very low scoring, very low creation, right? Arsenal 0.7 XG, PSG 0.4 XG, KG. Now, one of the reasons for that, in my opinion, was that we didn't have Martin Odegaard. So if you remember, we didn't have Odegaard. We played Havertz in midfield. Trossard, actually. I think we mainly played Trossard as the left central midfielder, didn't we? With Partey and Rice. Now, that was interesting. And of course, Havertz got on the end of that header from Trossard. But we were missing Martin Odegaard. Now, you might sit there and say, Odegaard's not at his best at the moment, etc., etc. I actually, watching back yesterday's game, don't get me wrong, there were moments that really frustrated me with Odegaard. You look at our first goal, though, he's integral in that first goal, in all of the build-up to it. And that was someone that we missed. And then again, people talk about PSG's lineup. Well, they had Desiree Doué, they had Barcola. Okay, they didn't have Ousmane Dembele, they had Lee. That's a big difference. And of course, at that point, Kvaratskhelia wasn't a PSG player. But they had their normal back 4. And we scored 2 goals against them. They had Vitinha, Neves, and Zaire Emery. But I think Fabian Ruiz came on, so he was an option for them. I don't think there's a huge difference between the 2 teams. But I think the matchup suits us. I think it suited us then, and I think it suits us now. And this is why. The midfield battle is why. Because we are physically dominant in midfield. We were physically dominant against Real Madrid, and we will be physically dominant against this midfield, whether it's Zaire Emery or Fabian Ruiz. And they don't have midfield reinforcements. You look at that game against Aston Villa, the second leg. Why were Aston Villa causing them so many problems? Because they had big physical midfielders, and they packed out the midfield. You had Onana, Kamara, McGinn, Tielemans, Morgan Rogers, all of them in midfield. And they overpowered them. And PSG struggled because they can't really do anything to counter it because they don't have any more midfielders. The only player they had that could really deal with that sort of thing, and even he wasn't great at it, was Ugarte, and they sold him. So I think we win the midfield battle. I also look at where their threats are, right? And people say the wingers are the threats. And they are to an extent. Well, okay, I've got Jurriën Timber and I've got Miles Lewis-Skelly. And again, as part of that midfield battle, Miles Lewis-Skelly moving into midfield, the way he's just handled Jude Bellingham, unbelievable. But I've got Jurriën Timber. So I'm not too worried about whoever's up against him. At left back, I've got Miles Lewis-Skelly. Unless Miles Lewis-Skelly plays in midfield in the first leg. We'll talk about that at a different time. But for now, I've got Miles Lewis-Skelly. I've just dealt with Rodrigo, Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe. I'm not overly worried about what is kind of a similar front three in terms of its three wingers. Assuming that they go Kvaratskhelia, Ousmane Dembele, and then one of Barcola and Doué, because they're the two that have been rotating. I'm not too worried about that. And is that really where their threat comes from? Yes, to an extent, but it massively comes from their fullbacks. You look at their two legs against Aston Villa, 3 of their 5 goals came from fullbacks. 2 came from Mendes, 1 came from Hakimi. Well, are they going to be bombing forward against Arsenal? They could bomb forward against Villa because Villa didn't have wingers. Is Mendes really going to be getting in and around our box and leaving Saka? Is Hakimi going to be doing that? Maybe. If they do, I'm happy because I've got Martinelli and Saka that can attack it. But I don't think they will. And so again, I think they'll struggle to attack us. So I think the matchup is good. I really do think the matchup is good. I said it before. Stylistically, I'd rather have had PSG than Aston Villa in the same way that I would rather have Real Madrid than Atletico Madrid. I said that when it was an option of one of those two. Styles make fights. So I think we beat PSG. I genuinely do believe we beat PSG. We should beat PSG. So then we get to the final. And then we've got either Barca or Inter. And again, and you might find this interesting, I would rather... What's going on here? I would rather face Barcelona in the final than Inter Milan. Because stylistically, it's better for us. I think we can play against Barcelona and keep them out. And I think we're far more likely to score against them. Whereas against Inter, they could keep us out. And then it comes down to smaller margins. Then it comes down to Mikel Merino having a penalty given against him because his hand's here and a deflected header hits it from half a yard away. So I would rather face Barcelona. Do I think we'll face Barcelona in the final? I'm not so sure. I think Inter could do a job over them. But the point is, Arsenal are not the favourites, but we very, very could well win it. We are well positioned to win it. We are better positioned to win the Champions League this season than we were when we lost the final to Barcelona, in my opinion. I think we can do it. I'm excited to see if we do it. But ultimately, time will tell. Ultimately, time will tell. And we cannot get ahead of ourselves. Also, injuries, we're in a precarious position right now. With Partey suspended, Jorginho, I don't think is going to be fit. We got 2 games before the first leg against PSG. We cannot afford any injuries. We can't afford a Saliba injury. We can't afford a recurrence or anything for Saka, Timber. We have to carry that same team into the semi-finals. But hopefully we do. We will see. Videos over the next couple of days. We've uploaded every single day of this month, basically, so far. And I'm loving being consistent, and I'm trying to stay consistent. I'm going home, literally, I'm about to set off to go home for Easter, spend some time with family. So I don't know if there's going to be a video every day for the next 3 days. We'll definitely be back by Monday. I might record some on my phone. Obviously, I'm not going to take the whole setup back to my parents, right? I'll try and make something. I want to really, really stick to being consistent. But I'm also not just going to make a crap video on my phone and waste your time with it. So if there's not a video or they're a bit sporadic over the next few days, I apologize. But look, I'm loving being back on YouTube, like I said. We've got Ipswich Town on Sunday. Ipswich Town on Sunday. There will be a preview for that, actually. But other than that, I hope you enjoy your Thursday. I hope you enjoy watching the Europa League tonight. Thank God we're not in that. And have a great Easter weekend if you celebrate Easter. So other than that, have a good one and goodbye.